Herkese merhaba, hoş geldiniz. Yabancı konuğumuz var mı bilmiyorum ama İngilizce devam edeceğiz. Kongremizin resmi dili İngilizce olduğu için. Hepiniz tekrar hoş geldiniz. I welcome all the guests, dear participants. Welcome to the last session of the second day of the Livenarch Congress. As you all know, the main subject of the Congress is other architecture. My name is Nilgün Kuloğlu. I am from Karadeniz Technical University, Department of Architecture. And the main title of our session is Philosophy, Theory, History, Discourse. And I am very happy to be with you in this session and Livenarch Congress. Okay, I think we are ready for listening to presentations. In this session, we are going to listen 5 papers from different universities and cities. I would like to introduce all participants. The first speakers, Bedriye, Begüm, Nazlı, ERAP, Mustafa, Kemal, YURTTAŞ, Füsun, Seçer, KARİPTAŞ from Haliç University. The second speaker is Seçil ÖZCAN GEYLANİ from Başkent University. The third speaker, Saliha ASLAN from Bursa Technical University. The fourth speakers are İrem, TUNCBIZ OZGUR, Arzu, CAHANTIMUR from Bursa Uludağ University. And the last speaker is Esin Özkılıç from Atölye 00 Architectural Studio. Okay, if everybody is ready, let's listen to the first presentation. Their title of the article is Post-Human Space, User Experience in Anthropocene Age. Come in, please.
Hello everyone, I'm Begüm Nazlı ERAP. Today I will be presenting the statement of Post-Human Space, User Experience in Anthropocene Age. Since the beginning of humanity, design has been based on human needs and positions the human at the center all over the world. Today's world is becoming a place shaped by social, economic, and political decision of people. Space is a fiction or fact. It is the result of the practice of perception and experience. At this point, space is a production that is the output of a design process. As you see in the figure, it's a kind of loop of human behaviors and experience. The Anthropocene is an age created as simulation space under the influence of humanity and was shaped by human behavior over time. As a result of rejection of the humanist concept of male, the need to be replaced the concept of anthropocentrism with the relational integrity of human, and in this symbiosis, technology has become a second nature. With Haraway explanation, nature and technology as culture cannot be separated from each other. In the architectural context, life practices and experiences make the earth a design place. Nature has been under threat as a result of human-centered thought and has been colonized in the name of man's own life, culture, and development. The system, which is called symbiosis, can also be considered as the harbinger of us. In the context of body and space, the humans turned into a figure of cyborg, which is a cybernetic organism, a hybrid machine, a creature of social reality, as well as a creature of fiction. In the Anthropocene age, it's obvious there's a disruption in the relation of nature and culture in multi-design areas, such as city, industry, and especially in architecture. Today, when resources, consumptions, and climate change are examined, the concerns about minimizing the negative effects created by humans are also seen in the search for spaces that will create a symbiotic link between artificial and natural. So, humans have become a geological agent on the planet. With this geological agent, in the post-human approach, values that create us occurs in the interaction of design brains and bodies, and also system living in organic and technologic. In order to understand this new us, stories and experiences need to be measured as social and individually. In this symbiosis between natural and artificial, architectural and interactive living spaces are concerned about design by experience, just like virtual spaces and screens. The perception and multi-senses of user cultural interactions with nature and space, and at the end, repetitions of all these experiences are the factors of user experience. Well, therefore, when considering human as a user, anthropogenic sustainability can be evaluated through the user experiences, presenting the influence of the Anthropocene as a critical discussion in the intersections of art, design, and architecture, and those becomes a cumulative production area. Let's see a few common examples over these areas. The first example is the blur building. The structure uses the water and makes the fog and give the visitors an experience about space. The structure which provides the experience of virtual and real in daily life over the human mind and body also touches the nature and culture idea through the water. The wearable technology element, with the smart raincoats which are given to the visitors, enables the communication of users not only with the building but also with each other by collecting data and creating the spatial experience. And this atmospheric architectural includes cyborg and post-human interaction in order where technology is second nature. Another example is, again, a space experience example is the symbiotic seeing by Olafur. The exhibition reacts the body heat and motion of the visitors to involve them directly into the place. It's about the interaction of all human and non-human figures in the world with each other. Creates a space of experience that focuses on common life. It tells us the effects of the Anthropocene on space are all about the shape by user experience and behaviors. And the last example is a little bit different. It uses the material with the experience at the same time. The project refers to the Anthropocene age with the concept of biodigital architecture, which will shape the future actually. The digital algorithm-based structure is produced as 3D printed blocks, supports metabolisms by photosynthesis and converts them into real-time oxygen and biomass. This man-made biological blend can be considered as a materialist definition of symbiontism in today's coexistence of nature and technology. So how we can propose an other architecture space in Anthropocene for new us? Well, the answer of these questions can be found over those fields. Observing the impacts of Anthropocene in a spatial dimension, and working on the multidisciplinary design fields and combination of them, and balance in the symbiosis and technology, examining the notion of us and considering the user space-place experiences. So, architecture will design the world of today and tomorrow as a consequence of presenting new structure, and the new path to be taken in the art, design and architecture will shape the world as a spatial design. Thank you for your attention.
Begüm, thank you very much for your presentation. Interesting presentation. And now the second presentation. The title is, I think, okay, the association between nature and technology, immigrant settlements in the environs of Bursa and Ankara, Seçil, ÖZCAN, GEYLANİ. You're welcome to.
Hello everyone, my name is Seçil, GEYLANİ, and I want to present you today my paper titled as Further Meanings on Americanization in Turkey, Narrated Architectures, Review, Domesticities. This research attempts to make a mutual reading of architecture and literature by focusing on novels produced in 1950s Turkey to elaborate on modernity and the influence of American culture in the domestic sphere. In a wider perspective, this research also utilizes literature as a potential medium to understand the social and spatial dynamics of the period in question. Following the end of the Second World War, Turkey experienced important changes in social, political, and economic terms that had both domestic and international roots. The most apparent in these terms was the closer relationships with the Western world that affected not only the social political system and economy, but also the lifestyles in the country. The influence of the United States on the developments in Turkey after the war resulted in the interpretation of the meaning of the West and the process of Westernization of the country. Thus, during the period starting from the Second World War until the end of the 1950s, both the dynamics and habits of daily life and the design of domestic sphere had simultaneously changed. The apartment house and the apartment flat had emerged as the prototype domestic unit of the middle class. Within this framework, this research investigates the major political and economic developments in post-war Turkey and analyzes the impacts of them on architecture and the literature of the period. Then it focuses on the Americanization and its influence on domesticity, daily life, and everyday practices by using the literature of the period to reveal the other meanings of this concept. Under the rule of the Democrat Party, Turkey experienced major changes politically and in the lifestyles of the country since the modernization was accepted as a result of Americanization. There were a number of factors that initiated such a change. First, Turkey became a member of the United Nations. Then Prime Minister Adnan Menderes won the 1950 elections and thus concluded the one-party rule of Republican People's Party, which was in administration since 1923. On the other side, as parallel to Turkey's politically close position with the Western Bloc and the USA in the renewed world order, especially after the Second World War, this period ended up with the embracement of the architectural language of the Western world. Thus, new materials, construction techniques were adopted in Turkish architecture and products related with rationalism were given. As it was discussed extensively in the historiography of modern architecture in Turkey, starting from the post-war period in the 1960s, architectural structures that became the icons of post-war architecture in the USA turn into examples that constitute the mainstream in the representation of modernism in this period in developing countries such as Turkey. Similarly, one of the greatest improvements brought to this period by the influence of the international style was the presence of residential architecture with reinforced concrete structures and large glass plates facade and the existence of apartment blocks. As for the literature of the period between 1956 to the 1980s, new themes came forward both in tale and in novels. These themes were the commemoration of the past, the impacts and the impressions of the Second World War, the democratization process in Turkey and establishment of new parties, the rural Anatolia generally as a neglected and forgotten land, and the women issues. Their presence both in domestic and work life was discussed, especially with the acceleration in the number of women writers in that period. At the end of the first decade of the Kemalist regime by 1931, the Ottoman revivalism and nationalistic approaches was rapidly abandoned in favor of an imported new architecture as the modern architecture of the period called in Turkey at that time. In that period, the ordinary people and their stories were out of enthroned rather than the social issues. In his novel Ayaşlı ile Kiracıları, Memduh Şevket Esendal was introducing apartment buildings with their own accommodation styles in that period, which included rental rooms and was used as an investment tool for the owners. Additionally, in that period, both women writers and the women characters became much more visible in the literary circles and the novels as a result of the improvements in the rights and the education of the women in the Republican society. Women's position in domestic life continued to be visible in novels increasingly as they portrayed as the managers of the domestic life and also the routines in apartment living. The Americanized lifestyle, which was supported in the period as a result of the relations developed in the political and economic context, began to be visible in the kitchen plans of the apartments produced in the period, especially for the high and middle-income group families. While refrigerators were not included in the kitchen drawings of the apartments produced in the first half of the 20th century, when the Arçelik brands, which started to produce the first domestic refrigerator in 1960, refrigerators began to take place in the drawings. With such an effort, it can be understood that The domestic life in these houses in Turkey do not fall behind their contemporaries in different geographies, but on the contrary, they closely follow that knowledge. The authors, on the other hand, observed this new domestic life and everyday routines and reflected them in their novels in Kemal Bilbaşar's Ay Tutulduğu Gece and Orhan Kemal's Gurbet Kuşları. With the effect of this rapid spread, apartment life is problematized by the monotonous and repetitive lifestyle it brings by Oktay Akbal in his Suçumuz İnsan Olmak in 1957. It's noteworthy that in that novels, apartment living generally portrayed for middle or high-income groups, while the low-income groups either depicted as maids or doorkeepers. Although such a distinction was often described as the second group's desire about occupied domestic life, it was also expressed in the opposite way. In his same work, Gurbet Kuşları, Orhan Kemal spoke out of the discomfort of apartment living from the eyes of maid Ayşe. Literary works of the period also played an intermediary role in the infiltration of some newly introduced materials and imported products into daily life. The materials as nylon, mica, rubber start to be visible in domestic life depictions as it was appeared in Akbal's work. In the process shaped by the 1930s, apartments and apartment life were considered as a tool of modernization and westernization. The migration from rural to urban areas, which emerged as a result of the economic dynamics of the post-war period and the policies, has been one of the reasons for the visibility and the encounter of different social classes in big cities. The apartment life in post-war Turkey also provided to transform daily life practices and reshape the domestic life. As a response to the promises of the post-war world, domestic life turned into a stage where the technological power of the period was tried to be shown. While the political and economic developments in post-war Turkey left mark on architecture and literature of the period, Americanization became even more visible both in social and domestic life. Thus, the literature of the period started to reflect and explain how the apartment living was transformed both with the presence of electrical devices and new materials, how the new actors as maids or doorkeepers were defined in this practice, and how the position of the women and the social class were redefined in the domestic life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Seçil ÖZCAN GEYLANİ. I'm sorry, I think I made a mistake about the title of the article. Now we will listen. The article is titled The Association Between Nature and Technology, Immigrant Settlements in the Environs of Bursa and Ankara. Saliha ASLAN from Bursa Technical University. Please welcome.
Hello everyone, I'm Saliha ASLAN. Today I'm going to talk about the association between nature and technology, immigrant settlements in the environs of Bursa and Ankara. The immigrant settlements were formed both in the environs of Bursa and Ankara, especially after the wars that occurred in the second half of the 19th century Ottoman Empire. By comparing the immigrant settlements which were constructed both in the environs of the cities of Bursa and Ankara, the study is structured in three parts. First, the conceptual and theoretical framework and the context of the study. Second, the utilization of nature and technology and the diverse technologies serving for agricultural development. And third, the immigrants, peasants, and the immigrant settlements. Since the association between nature and technology triggered the use of modern agricultural machines and equipment and the construction of advanced transport systems, this study aims to conceptualize this association as a way of spatial transformation of the immigrant settlements in the environs of Bursa and Ankara. This paper therefore questions whether the immigrant settlement policy of the state was an intentional choice to stimulate the association between nature and technology or an inevitable obligation to construct the immigrant houses in a speedy and economic way and to catch modernization experienced in the worldwide. Although the architecture of immigrant settlements is mainly not included in architectural historiography based on the canonical buildings, this study offers to study these village-like environments and buildings in these sites within the context of the association between nature and technology. The theoretical and conceptual framework of the study is fundamentally based on the studies on urban environmental history. With reference to William Cronon, Alan Mikhail, and Yves Blas, the relations between production and spatial and infrastructural development came into foreground. Cronon, Mikhail and Blah offer that environmental sources and problems cannot be reduced into a single-layered approach through considering only one source and problem. Rather, diverse natural resources and their management processes in relation to urbanization should be taken into consideration. Inspiring from these approaches, this study surges new insights into immigrant peasants and settlements, which can be considered as conceptual bridges between nature and technology. Also, by delving into Ottoman archival documents and historical photographs, the main target of the study are to emphasize the importance of the natural resources of Bursa and Ankara, especially fertile agricultural lands and water resources as drainage system for cultivating the lands in the hinterlands, the role of immigrant peasants in maintaining small-scale landholdings and providing the mechanization of agriculture, and the strong association between nature and technology through conceptualizing this association as a way of spatial transformation of hinterlands in Bursa and Ankara. Although the contribution of immigrants to the introduction of modern agricultural technology and the increase in agricultural production are highly emphasized in the literature, books, newspapers, and historical periodicals as stimulating tools of agricultural modernization should also be specified. The establishment and development of agricultural bureaucracy since the 1840s also initiated agricultural reform programs, and in the 1880s the Istanbul-centered officers were also assigned in Ottoman provinces to inspect farms, schools, and model farms. The agricultural development was also fostered through the establishment of schools and their adjacent farms, which were constructed to introduce modern techniques and equipment and to distribute improved seeds to the peasants. Agricultural schools were also the centers of agricultural education, where theory and practice were integrated. Parallelly, the modernization of the Ottoman state also contributed to this process through re-establishing agricultural education to introduce modern agricultural technology. The arrival of the railway in Anatolia in 1892 also resulted in the increase in cereal and thus facilitating the export of cereal in Ankara. The use of agricultural machines and the theory of agricultural knowledge, as well as the construction of infrastructure, were the signs of the development of technology and the institutionalization of the field of agriculture, which contributed to the Ottoman agricultural modernization. The Crimean, Ottoman, Russian, and Balkan Wars resulted in immigration process as known, and the immigrant settlement policy came into the agenda of the Ottoman Empire. This process also led to the development of dynamic and diverse commercial relations and the transport of goods while enhancing the multicultural feature of cities. The building regulation of 1848, for instance, was one of the signs of the attempts for reorganizing cities through planned and right-angle streets, as seen in these maps of Bursa and Ankara. As the immigrants preferred Bursa for settling and the state made efforts to meet immigrants' demands, this process led to an increasing congestion in Bursa. For this reason, a report was prepared to determine proper lands in the environs of Bursa and Ankara and to settle the immigrants. The planned immigrant villages, including houses and infrastructures such as roads, mosques, and schools, were also established, and the maps and plans of these settlements are available in the Ottoman archive. The gridiron regular organization of the site is also notable in this map. These settlements were the places where nature and technology were met and modern agricultural technology were implemented by the immigrants. As understood from maps and photographs, the reason behind the immigrant houses' plainness and schematic designs might be related to the rapid and urgent settlement process of immigrants. The state also did not want to delay the modernization process and agricultural development, while inevitably stimulating the association between nature and technology. The association between nature and technology was strengthened since the construction of immigrant settlements and the transmission of agricultural knowledge of immigrants into the field paved ways for the development of Ottoman modernization, commercial agriculture, and settlement formations. Natural components such as land and water, together with technological developments, were highly utilized in the construction of immigrant villages in Bursa and Ankara. Technology-related developments such as theory-based education, publications, agricultural knowledge of immigrants, the use of modern agricultural machines and equipment, as well as the construction of infrastructure, were considerably integrated into the nature-related developments, such as the cultivation of farms, the use of water sources, and increasing productivity. Beyond being a combination, the concept of association between nature and technology can be structured through delving into these processes of spatial transformation within the context of nature-based production and transport technology. Thank you. Hocam, you are muted.
I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you, Saliha, for your presentation. Now we will listen. İrem TUNCBIZ OZGUR. The title of the article is An Investigation for Sheltering Needs of a Seasonal Agricultural Workers. Yes, İrem, please welcome.
Hi everyone, my name is İrem TUNCBIZ OZGUR. I'm an architect and PhD student at Uludağ University. Today I'm going to present our research with my PhD advisor Arzu CAHANTIMUR. Our research title is An Investigation for Sheltering Needs of Seasonal Agricultural Workers. For this research, we investigated about housing condition of seasonal agricultural workers both world and Turkey. First of all, I would like to start with problems and general situation. Then I'll continue to talk about housing condition in different parts of the world and Turkey. After that, we're able to explain living condition of seasonal agricultural workers around Bursa, finally finishing the presentation with solution alternatives. Social, economic, and political factors experienced along with history have also caused migration to continue national and international context. Furthermore, especially in recent years, environmental problems have become one of the top reasons people leave their living environments. Climate refugees are the most critical group that had to move away from their living places to their poor environmental conditions. Seasonal agricultural workers constitute an essential part of these climate refugees. In accordance with different conditions, regions, and climates, accommodates in different shelter solutions for seasonal agricultural workers. For example, on-farming housing, off-farming housing, or mobile homes. Guides are published by local governments or non-governmental organizations to define existing situation and understand the housing quality. What are the conditions of seasonal agricultural workers in Turkey? Seasonal agricultural activities are carried out approximately 48 provinces in Turkey. The average working time of seasonal agricultural workers under harsh physical conditions varies between 6 and 15 years. Different climatic zones and agricultural products cause the agricultural production calendar to vary. The problems experienced by seasonal agricultural workers in Turkey have similar characteristics and can be summarized as titled as education, shelter material, interior and space, transportation, hygiene, electricity, infrastructure, chemical and pesticide waste, and clean water. Our next title about the case study undertaken in Bursa. The aim is to determine the existing physical and socio-cultural conditions in detail Eski Sarıbey and Orta Sarıbey. Observation and reports published by Development Workshop and Bursa Medical Chamber have been continuing at regular intervals until today. Districts where seasonal agricultural workers are concentrated can be listed at Karacabey, Mustafa Kemal Pasha, and Yenişehir. In June, interviews were done with seasonal agricultural workers and intermediates living in Eski Sarıbey. There are currently 7 families, 45-48 people, settlement area. The agricultural labor period continues until October. The outcomes of the observation can be summarized as follows. Who come the region bring the tents that make up their living spaces. There is no existing infrastructure. The water to be used for dishwashing or bathing needs is to carry to needed area. There are no studies on the provision of school and health services. Food and kitchen utensils are kept in tents. The cooking area is located outside the tent and used in common. In the residential area in Orta Sarıbey, there are about 60 people, including about 40-43 adults. The intermediately has stated that the number of people in the region will remain stable and that no new people will come to the work in coming months. In Orta Sarıbey, there are tents set up the district's governor office in the region. These tents fixed for 12 months of the year have been used for 6 and 7 years. The tents, which are directly affected by all climatic and environmental conditions, are ready for settlement after necessary maintenance, repair, and cleaning procedures are carried out by the workers who came to the region. The remaining containers areas are unusable. The Dayıbaşı provides the electricity connection in the tents in the region. The usage fee charge of the per tent. Younger children are left alone in the area. Finally, the most important of the inferences about the settlement and living condition of seasonal agricultural workers cannot benefit from solution for their basic shelter needs. Even within the same province and district, living conditions and opportunities may differ. Problems related to housing condition can be classified under settlement, housing unit, working areas, and common areas. First of all, it's necessary to determine the standards for providing the solution proposals. These standards will let us to propose adequate solution and enable seasonal agricultural workers live and work under better conditions. The starting point should be determining the necessary comfort condition after defining the special needs related to different function and subheadings. Development of the standardized list special needs and comfort condition and application them in the accommodation areas. Seasonal agricultural workers will be aiming the following studies to others. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation, Irem. And now our session's last speaker is Esin Özkılıç. Her title of the article, The Place Attachment Among Turkish in Belgium Within the Scope of Activities and Events. Okay, Esin, we will listen you.
Dear participants, my name is Esin Özkılıç. I am an architect from Istanbul. Today I am going to present my article named The Place Attachment Among Turkish in Belgium Within the Scope of Events and Activities, Case Study Report. Before beginning, I would like to summarize the curriculum of presentation. Firstly, it focuses on description of place attachment and identity. Secondly, the story of immigration. Subsequently, case study area. Finally, it shows the conclusion of the paper. In addition to this, I would like to briefly talk about the aim and the methodology of paper. It concerns the attachment among Turkish immigrants in Robot. And while preparing this article, I have used book, article reviews, special analysis, and interviews as a tool. The first part of the presentation is the description of place attachment and identity. Place attachment generally defined as an affective bond or link between individuals and specific place. According to description, many similar terms can relate with it, such as community attachment, sense of community, place attachment, place identity, place dependence, sense of place. Here you see the single and green-fart tripartite model of place attachment. This framework proposes that place attachment is a multidimensional concept and it divided into 3 different categories. Personal dimension, the person dimension, individual and collective place attachment, the psychological process dimension of place attachment, the place dimension of place attachment. On the other hand, the classification of identity can be tackled as social environment and cultural identity and also built environment identity. So after immigration, people often think about who I am, where did I come from, where do I belong to, and always try to find answers to these questions. The second part of the presentation focuses on the story of immigration. The first immigrants went to Belgium in 1964 as a result of bilateral labor agreement. Besides that, a group of people moved Belgium as a part of chain immigration wave, and another group moved via middlemen as laborers. Recently, new immigrants who has good level of education start to move Belgium as higher titled employees. The main problems about why Turkish people illustrate low success in education life can be summarized as lack of understanding of their mother tongue, low preschool attendance, cultural differences, lack of knowledge about Flemish and French. The descent of Turkishes. The Turkish community mostly live in Brussels, Ghent, Antwerp, and Limburg, and it consists of different groups from Turkey. The place attachment among Turkish immigrants in Belgium. From many perspectives, they could able to prevail their own cultural continuity with their own opportunities. However, in some cases, they could not be a part of modern life in Belgium. Firstly, the place attachment should argue according to two main different groups. First, labor immigrants. The second one is high educated immigrants. The first group is also divided into three different generations. The first generation never described themselves belong to Belgium. The second generation have tendency to feel attached more to Turkey even though their families are in Belgium. The third generation tend to feel attached more Belgium, but somehow they cannot describe themselves as a part of neither Turkey nor Belgium, but feel belong to certain cities and districts in both countries. On the other hand, they describe themselves as a lost generation. Lastly, the second group, high-educated newcomers, cannot feel attached to Belgium, but feel adapted to culture better, even with their narrow knowledge about Flemish. The case study area located on north of Ghent, which named Rabot. Waldenhamstraat is the main artery in the district, which links between north and the city center. Here, we will see the spaces which were distinguished by Turkish people. First, as residential areas, it examined in three different categories: single male houses, primary family houses, secondary family houses. The impact of Turkish people in Belgium indicates it falls more in public space rather than the residential area. These places can be divided into different branches such as collective and commercial spaces. Collective spaces mostly locate around Waldenhamstraat and they use for different events besides their actual functions, such as mosques. Further, we can count restaurants, tea houses, music houses, wedding salons, and student centers as well. For commercial use, markets, bakeries, butchers, jewelry shops, etc. can be listed in Waldenhamstraat. On the other hand, we should consider the places which were built by city of Ghent and or citizens for Rabot to have integration process, such as civil organization, church, collective ateliers, district center. Here you see one of the collective atelier which helps to immigrant ladies to support their economy via making handcraft in Waldenhamstraat. This is from an event which aimed to build a bridge between locals and immigrants in front of the church. It's held every Saturday. This is one of the analysis of net economy project and its exhibition which took place in district center and church by Karadeniz and the city. Finally, in conclusion, as a last word, the urban changes should be concerned as a result of researching for identity and place attachment, which affect the special organization as well as the use of the space in immigrant neighborhoods. The district as Rabot should be examined as a gateway for the multicultural environment of cities, and the appropriation of space in these areas should be held according to people's needs. In this context, this study aims to create another reference to studies of Turkish immigrants in Europe within the understanding of activities and events. Thank you for listening to me. You can find further information on my paper.
Thanks for your presentation, Esin, and thanks for all presentations. The topics which discussed in this session, to summarize, the relationship between space and human, reading of architecture on the culture, immigrant settlements and their meaning, about the settlement areas of seasonal agricultural, and about the identity and place attachment. Thanks to all speakers for interesting topics. Now I think I have a little time, and do you have any question to the speaker? I check and I couldn't see any question. Evet, yes, any question now? Katılımcılara baktım. Herkes Türk. İsterseniz Türkçe devam edebiliriz. Belki birbirinize sorularınız olabilir arkadaşlar. Daha samimi olabiliriz. Yine bakıyorum, soru gelmedi. No question. Okay. I think no question. Peki, o zaman kapatabiliriz oturumumuzu zannediyorum. Ben hepinize tekrar teşekkür ediyorum. Resmi olması açısından da İngilizce olarak bitiriyorum oturumumuzu. I would like to thank everyone who contributed to the 7th Livenarch Congress and of course all participants. I hope to see you in other events at any time and with health. I would like to close this session and thanks for all participants and attendees. Thank you very much.